Hi, everybody. Good evening. This is December 27th, 2025, and we are 1,974 days since our son Richard Halliday was forcibly removed from his barracks room there on Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas, and he was taken to the arms room. The arms room is a basement room in that same building. We have posted up uh, the seal on the door, um, and under the illegal orders of Major General James Eisenhower, that room was renovated with no expense spared, no limit, okay, no limit, and not following the proper protocols, um, forbidding and all of that. So that has been revealed to us by the Director of Emergency Services on Fort Bliss, and it was very illegal. And that was, of course, tampering with a crime scene. So he was taken there, and then, of course, his body was stolen off of Fort Bliss. Um, you can't just take a body, uh, you know, and tamper with a crime scene and take it off of a military base where the foul play happened, which has been confirmed by that foul play was evident, and interference absolutely happened by the whistleblower, Judge Roger Rodriguez, a judicial officer in his official capacity, which is a very, very big deal now because he has confirmed that the foul play and also the interference with our son's investigation and identifying the prime suspects in our son's case, which of course is Leilani Hart and CID agent who had his credentials removed and his badge revoked, Tavita Nusa. He was also separated from the military in 2021. And of course, Richard's platoon leader, Dallas Hart. These are all family members. Of course, Leilani Hart is Dallas's mother, and you see uh, that we have the evidence, the witness, um, 5.5 years, and we're over the target. And when that happens, when you're really over the target and you have the millions of views that we have had, then it's time for Team Find Richard Halliday to take the next step. And of course, this is all about um, Richard Halliday exposing that the Walmart mass shooting was not a narrative like they said, okay? Um, Not Patrick Crucius, y'all, lone shooter. Patrick Crucius is the family of El Paso legal judicial family, the Mayellas, Michael Mayella, the federal courthouse manager, and then, of course, his son, being in the FBI, being in the DA's office, because he was cyber, right? And he also with Walmart cybersecurity that has been established, and um, that they hid that family from the public so that they could push forward a narrative. And who's they that hid it? Well, the AUSA, Steven Spitzer, who's good friends. who's good friends. They meet just about weekly with the Mayella family, and he was the federal prosecutor, and of course, Michael Mayella being the federal courthouse manager, they had this additional working relationship, and Steven Spitzer hid from the public and let a false narrative be promulgated through the media that this was a lone shooter and that he didn't know anyone in El Paso, which is all false, and that he was connected to President Trump and, inspired by President Trump's, all this fake narrative. And the fake narrative was um, key in trying to hurt President Trump in the election. It was election tampering. That's what it was. And why is, and there's been all of this attacks on President Trump about the Epstein, which everyone understands that. Make sure that I'm on. I don't see that I'm on. Oh, there it is. Okay. President Trump and the Thank you, Laura, for coming on. And I really want to address this because I think this is really, really important, because I've been repeating what happened to our son, which is an absolute atrocity, because we believe that there's a huge chance that his organs were harvested, that his body was dumped at Plenitude Crematorium. We know that his body was trafficked to Mexico. We know that the people involved in this are with mortuary operations, with the funeral homes. We know that this is the group that is trafficking through the tunnels and everything. Okay. They're also tied to Fort Bliss. And of course, Fort Bliss, the prime suspect being the former CID agent Tavita Nusa. His brother, Major Solomon Nusa, was mortuary operations. Okay. So all of this is connected. And of course, the latest is that President Trump won the 2025 election, even with all of the attacks on him, everything that they've done to him. People have seen through it. Even with all of the cheating in the election, which is that they've been doing for a long time. They've been cheating in these elections for a long time. It's very, very important for them. And my Oma warned me about this because when, of course, right before World War II, there was constant election cheating. Okay, constant election cheating. She would tell me about the election cheating, and in Germany, so you know who I'm talking about, and I really want to address this because for 4 years, the Biden administration had the opportunity to release all of the Epstein files. Okay, but we know 5.5 years of doing this that there is massive tampering with case files, um, uh, with recordings, with everything. In our son's case, with witnesses, with everything, there is major tampering with his vehicle, with his phone, with his body, right? With his body, his remains. We know that they tamper. We know they did it on the U.S. side. We know that they did it on the Mexico side. Okay, with Carlos Manuel Salas, with Cesar Duarte, with Cesar Paneche, with all the cartel involved in all of this, with the Mormon faction involved in all of this, the funeral home, all we know through Plenitude Crematorium, over 400 bodies found. That means that all of those death certificates have been tampered with. Okay, so we know that Richard's Interpol picture was tampered with. Everything's tampered with. Okay, so do not think for 1 minute that the Epstein files have not been tampered with. They've been so tampered with. Okay, it's constant tampering. Um, so it is. They're unreliable. They're unreliable. Do we need them released? Yes, we needed them released in 2019 when Jeffrey Epstein was arrested. Jeffrey Epstein was arrested in July of 2019. Okay, that's when we needed all these records, all of the prosecution to happen. Of course, we know what happened to him, right? So if that happened to him, we know that that's tampered, and we needed a good investigation. We know that the investigation was tampered with, right? That's the MO, right? Who's doing all of this tampering? And everyone's like, oh my gosh, it's just everyone's so corrupt, so corrupt, so corrupt. Well, how did they get corrupt? Election tampering. Election tampering. We know that the judges in the El Paso Magistrate Court are illegal. This is election tampering, okay? They all should be elected. Not one of them is elected. They're all still appointed, creating a constitutional crisis in El Paso since 2015 when they changed the situation of that court. That court now has full countywide jurisdiction. According to the Texas Constitution, those judges need to be elected. Before 2015, before they amended the jurisdiction level of that court, it was a partial jurisdiction. And that's why you could have judges that were appointed. But when that changed, that gave a lot of power to that court. And those judges need to be elected. And they're not. They're not. So this is tampering. Okay. And I think, it took us a long time to figure out why this is so important, that this is the number one issue above, way and over and above Jeffrey Epstein's file release. Okay, we need those files released, but we need those files released by those that at the beginning it should have been entrusted to people that would have done the right thing. But because there's so many infiltrators, people that have been appointed and elected falsely through the tampering of the election system, we have so many compromised officials. We know that in the Congress, they're compromised. We know they're dirty. We know a lot of them are cartel related, involved with the cartel, whatever. We know that from 5.5 years. I don't have to speculate. It is all with evidence. All with evidence, okay? The way they handled Richard's case, the way they handled the Epstein case, the way they targeted President Trump, and every time he mentions election tampering, they lose their mind. They lose their mind because it takes election tampering in order to get the keys to the power of law enforcement, to get the keys for the power of the judicial system. And they want the law enforcement, which we know, like CID Tavita Nusa, we know that with Solomona Nusa, we know through this whole um, investigation with Marlon Soto, with Nieto, with Colin Wetton, with Steven Spitzer, with Jaime Esparza. These are all compromised individuals. We know that through Montoya, James Bonneau Montoya, Bill Hicks. We know that through the El Paso Community Foundation with Sylvia Barunda Firth. I can go on and on and on of election tampering, appointment tampering, getting control of the law enforcement, getting control of the judicial system so that they can tamper with cases so that they can operate their criminal trafficking, which includes the baby harvesting, includes the organ harvesting, includes all the contracts with the military, includes oil theft, includes the narcotics, includes the fast and furious with the guns and all of that. The reason why it got so bad, the reason why 500,000 children were trafficked through Fort Bliss, okay? The reason why all of this trafficking, the targeting of migrants, exploiting the migrants, right now in Minnesota, when it comes to the Somalis, exploiting, getting them to exploit, tell me someone's not putting that money in the pocket. It's just the Somalis. I don't think so. I don't think so. So all of this tampering, all of this criminality can only happen if they're controlling the prosecutor's office, right? If they're controlling who is being appointed, who is being elected, and those appointments come from elections. It's all about election tampering. If we don't get our elections in order, then they will continue to cheat. They will continue to put their cartel infiltrators, their allies, in those key positions. And we won't get justice, right? We won't get justice. Nobody will get justice. And this is what is happening. The tampering, the delay. I mean, 4-5 years delay for who's on the Epstein list. I mean, this is not a new thing. It was President Trump's administration that arrested him in the first place, And that happened in July of 2019. What happened on August 3rd, 2019? A manufactured, or it was bloody, orchestrated Walmart mass shooting for a diversion. A diversion because El Chapo had been arrested. Jeffrey Epstein had been arrested. Richard was whistleblowing. President Trump had an inside man in the military on Fort Bliss, and his name was Richard Halliday. And that inside man saw the child trafficking, the weapons trafficking, the narcotics trafficking, and those involved in the Walmart mass shooting that did something so egregious. I mean, everything is so egregious, right? In order to prevent, they did it in order to prevent the reelection of President Trump. That's why they did. All evidence confirms this, that they could not stand President Trump. They did not want him to be the president. They wanted Beto O'Rourke to be president, didn't they, in El Paso? They wanted Beto O'Rourke to be president. Then they wanted Biden to be president, and they wanted Harris to be president. And why? Why? You know, not one of those three are compelling as leaders, okay? Not one of them is. And I don't care if you're on the left side or the right side, Now, you're telling me that the left doesn't have someone better than Beto O'Rourke, Biden, or Kamala Harris? Don't tell me that, okay? Don't tell me that. There's plenty. And then on the Republican side, the right side, it's the same thing, right? They, this was absolutely for them. Um, Election interference. No matter what, these three would allow the continuation of the exploitation of migrants, the exploitation or the trafficking of the children, the trafficking of organ harvesting and targeting of pregnant women for their babies, and the Fast and Furious and the narcotics and all and the contracts, okay? Controlling the contracts, because if you win the elections, you get your favorable people in there to get these contracts. And you see that what's going on in Minnesota right now. Contracts for childcare, and then there's no children there. Contracts for healthcare, and then there's no healthcare being done there. And so it's military contracts, a lot of that. You're talking about $38 trillion, and most of that is in fraud. In fraud, because of election interference. Absolutely. It's all about election interference. And we need to stand up, and this is why we're over the target. That we're over, they fear more so than the whole organ harvesting, the 500,000 children. They didn't fear that. And if I get taken off, there's always threats, right? We have richardhalliday.com. We'll work on that really hard. We'll make other Facebook sites. We'll go to X more. We'll go to wherever necessary to get this truth out, to get our sons' remains, and for the United States of America, because the one thing that we have is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And they have been stealing that from us. They have been stealing that from us. We have a voice, and that one voice, that voice is so important, and it's called the vote. The vote. And this is what makes a country great, is that we would have fair elections, and they have been tampering with our elections. Okay. And this is why President Trump is absolutely right now, because we need the prosecutors, but the prosecutors are Montoya, who, can't even install properly. Bill Hicks can't even install properly. Steven Spitzer, who teams up with the likes of Colin Winton to protect the cartel trafficking Mormon faction, and keeps from the public the family of the Walmart shooter, right? Keeps a false narrative in the media when he knows the truth, and keeps that uh, uh, false justice, a false story in there to uh, for politics in order to interfere with the election. That's what he did. And he's a federal prosecutor. And then, of course, I can go into Judge Madrano. I could go into Joe Spencer. I could go into all of these really very nasty individuals that are supposed to be in charge. They have the keys, the power, right, of official documents, and to the courts and cases and investigations, and they have files. They have access to files, right? And they weaponize them against us. They weaponized them against us. They weaponized it against the president of the United States, and then they'll the ones that are really doing some major damage. They hid it. They hid everything about uh, Epstein for years, that they could have released all of that information. They could have been redacting and releasing it, and they hid it. And they hid the Mayellas from us. They hid what really happened at the Walmart mass shooting, and in the mall. And Glendon Oakley Jr. paid with his life, and Richard paid with his life. They were not supporting the whistleblowers, right? They were absolutely targeting the whistleblowers. And here comes a judge, an uncompromised judge. Can you believe it? And he becomes the whistleblower. And what do? They target him. They absolutely target him. And try to destroy his whole life. So things are changing because um, Richard's face is now we started a new page next to Judge Rodriguez because we've reached a new level. And how did that happen? Well, because the Intel and Special Forces community reached out to us, and they are sick and tired of this non-justice. Here they are, their intelligence, their special forces. They want to see the next steps of justice happen, right? They want to see us get justice for our son. They want to see the people that did this to Richard, that did this to Glendon Oakley Jr., that did this to the American people through their election interference. They want to see them being held accountable. And so this has changed things drastically for us because of this institutional support that we're getting. And of course, this is a battle, right? If we're getting that kind of institutional support because we're going viral, right? They all know that um, Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe is treasonous, right? They all know that what he did with Richard's case is allegedly. I don't want to. But everyone knows what a creep, what an absolute creep and disgust to the United States, to the people, to the military. Not one soldier should be allowed to be under his command because he's a risk to national security. He's a risk to the health of our military. He's a risk to the well-being of our country. And so this is really important uh, uh, to do the next steps for Team Farm Richard Halliday. And that means that when you're over the target, there's going to be those that want to shut us down. Okay. And so I just want to let you know 5.5 years, we've waited a long time to get to this position where the cards are in our hands, okay? Because we have the truth, okay? We have the truth. We have the evidence. And the arrests are happening, of course, on the Mexico side, and we're waiting for the arrest to happen on the U.S. side. And President Trump said this. He said, the Pam Bondi, the prosecutor of the United States, is being forced by the courts, right? Courts that have been appointed by election interference individuals um, that have messed up our law enforcement and our judicial system um, in a very, very bad way. And so he said, being forced to go through tampered records and redact and whatever, because they're demanding it now, right? And he said, just release them, because the bigger crime is taking away the people's voice. That means election interference. We are a government of the people, by the people, for the people. It's very, very, very important for our country. And there are those that have been interfering with our rights to live that, And so, you know, we need, I'm just saying that is where our focus should be. We should demand election integrity. Election integrity. We should demand it and demand it and demand it. And those that have been involved in tampering with elections, interference with elections, need to be held accountable. Because that is the key to everything else. Our representation, our law enforcement, our judicial system, our military, because the military leadership is they get their stars from the Senate Arms Committee. And we have a real problem with the Senate Arms Committee. Anybody that gave a 3rd star to Sean Bernabe and Donna Martin needs their head examined, or they are compromised. They are compromised. And this is rotten individuals that should not be in charge of any of our volunteer sons and daughters. Were given stars. Putting so many of our children, our sons and daughters, I know they're not children, they're our war fighters, right? Putting them in harm's way. And so many lost their lives or were injured because of failed leadership by people that should not be in those positions. And you see that with Fort Bliss, the HHS under Biden in March of 2021, where they ramped up unaccompanied minors. Come on, 500,000 unaccompanied minors, give me a break. There's another explanation and a better name for those children. And now they are missing. Some of them have been found. A lot of them are thought to no longer be alive. They were dropping them off in parking lots, deserted lots, strip joints, places where there were the shipping containers. Okay, when you look at the pictures of that Donna Anna Emergency Intake Center, it gives you the creeps. We have witnessed testimony that it was just so bad. And anything that Tugawan Chan, Jules Tugawan Chan, anything he had his little fingers in was not a good thing. Okay? Not a good thing. All right? He's really, someone wrote me and said, "Oh, I just want to let you know he's such a jerk." He's worse than that. So, and he had a part in that, what happened to those children. Okay. Along with a whole list of people that is part of this group, the same part of this group. So let me read any comments. Thank you. God bless you. Praying for your family. Thank you so much. Thank you. Everyone involved in the cover-up of Richard Halliday investigation and murder should be held accountable 100%. And those that promulgate false narratives, because so much, the whole smear campaign about Richard, we have debunked everything. And there's no corrections to it, right? And all of that, even what happened in the hospital, okay? Everything they did because he was the distinguished honor graduate, because he was making rank with waivers, because he was the inside man for President Trump, because he knew so much and was the whistleblower. They started, remember, they started after the election in November of 2019. In November of 2019, that's when they started targeting him as like friends, right? Oh, I have a really cheap car that I can sell to you because I'm leaving or whatever, because they wanted to get all of that framing in. They wanted to start discrediting Richard, getting things on record to discredit him, right? And then, of course, that led to taking his life. And that's what they were trying to do so that they could put out a false narrative, just like with the Walmart mass shooting, a false narrative to hurt Richard's character, and in the Walmart case, to hurt President Trump's character. That's what they were trying to do. And they did that to Glendon Oakley Jr. That, I mean, 24 hours hadn't gone by. 12 hours hadn't gone by before they started hounding him to discredit him because he saw the group dressed in black carrying M4s in the mall, because he heard shots in the mall go off in the mall, and that he was on camera. And because of his CNN interview, that was so reliable. It was so reliable. It was so authentic. And the next day, they had him crying. They had already started breaking him down. And in April of 2020, he was found not alive in his barracks room. That is so criminal. It's so, so criminal. Here, this young man, just like Richard, totally hero, totally trying to do the right thing, proud to be a United States soldier, and they destroyed him. Who are they? This deep state, these bureaucrats that are involved in the criminal trafficking and the election fraud to control the law enforcement, to control the justice system, to control cases, to be able to tamper with cases like Briones at the county clerk's office. She's like the tamperer of documents, right? And death certificates, tampering with death certificates. Can you imagine the hundreds of death certificates she's tampered with? So this is very, very, very serious and very important. And I just hope that you share this and get people to understand why this is what President Trump is saying is absolutely right. Even though he is in the midst of wolves, he's such in the midst of wolves. I just can't even, so I'm not saying to trust everything. I'm just saying, wow, this has been, I can't even imagine, because of the wolves that have been surrounding us, what's going on at that level, okay? And so we, the people, have to ensure that we have a voice, and that voice is heard in our elections. And those elections need to be dependable and accurate. Okay, that's the point. And that's the point that he's been making. And that goes for all Americans, we the people. So I think that is very, very important, and that should be our focus. Like I said, we are we're over the target. I hope that you will join the new Facebook site that is about Richard and Judge Rodriguez. I think that that is so important because of this wonderful thing that happened, that the intelligence and um, the special forces community reached out to us. I think that is amazing, and we have so much to share with you in order to grow and force. What's the word? Oh, you have to drive them to give us our son's remains. Drive them, and drive them to give us accountability. So this is, the only thing they really fear is election, right? That's the only, that's what really moves them, and that's their deception always, is to deceive the voters. So I just thank you so much. We love you so much for sticking with us, and know that we are not giving up. Not giving up. We're not going away. They could try to make us go away. We're not going away. Um, and so please follow us wherever we're at, and grow this. Look, millions of views lately. Um, we'll see. It's we're over the target. Let's just say that. Um, Thank you so much. God bless you, and